door, going over to Eagles Media's availability to hear what the coach has to say prior to this showdown game with the Giants and the Eagles. So, John DeShields jumping in with me for hour number 2. He'll help me get you guys home and get prepped for the game coming up this weekend against the Giants. Tone, need your take. Now, you're a younger guy than either McMullen or myself. You might have a different view on this than us. The rivalry that is the Giants and the Eagles. Johnny gave you the numbers. You draw your line wherever you want. The last 2 years, the last 5 years, the last 10 years. Eagles have gotten the better of the Giants. There's no arguing that. But the Giants have actually won 2 of the last 3. So, again, if you want to draw your line wherever you want, you can make an argument. I think that's kind of fudging it a little bit to make a giant argument. But Jalen Hurts did get beaten at building last year. Jalen Hurts did have his worst game as a Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback there last year. How big does that play in this game coming up, the fact that Hurts is trying to rebound from his worst showing as an Eagle?
Well, first things first, Jody, it's always a pleasure working with you, my man, as always. But, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, what makes him so special, right, is he knows how to not make it about him. He knows how to stay in the moment, and trust and believe he hasn't forgotten that game. He hasn't forgotten the fact that he laid an egg in MetLife. He threw 3 interceptions. He went 14 for 31. He played terribly, and you can make an argument that was the worst game of his career. So I'm pretty sure internally he wants to slay that demon. He wants to slay that dragon, right? But again, Jalen Hurts is one of those guys that he doesn't tend to make anything about him. He focuses on the moment. He focuses on the now. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. And I think that's one of his most domineering traits, the fact that he knows how to stay balanced. He knows how to stay even keel and just doesn't allow his emotions to get away from him. So I don't know how much it plays into it. I don't think it plays too much into it, but I still believe that he's highly motivated to continue the momentum that the Philadelphia Eagles have built thus far.
I think you're dead on right about that, because that's what's made him an MVP candidate, is the fact that he can narrow focus. He can keep his attention to what is presently in front of him and not worry about what's happened before and or look too far ahead. He has shown the ability to just stay in the moment, and he'll be in it against the Giants on Sunday. And the other thing that I think heavily leans in the Eagles' favor is they're just better. They've got guys that you can point to and say, all right, you need a big play here. This guy's going to give you a big play. A.J. Brown, T.J. Edwards on defense, the new additions to the defensive line, Hassan Reddick coming off the edge. They got a bunch of guys who have just flat out made big plays all year long. Who do the Giants have who you would put into that guy? All right, you need a big play here on either offense. Who's the individual player? Yeah, I don't know who that guy is on the Giants on either side of the ball. Yeah, we got Saquon Barkley is one of the biggest highlight players in the National Football League. It's been about a month since he's had a highlight play, so it would have to come against the defense, which is playing dynamite football right now. I don't have a Giant guy I can point to and say, hey, game hangs in the balance. Eagles are up by 6, fourth quarter. This guy's going to make a defensive play, or that guy's going to make an offensive play that's going to give the Giants the lead. I don't think they have that guy. Do you?
No, I actually don't think they do. And you brought up a good point. Saquon hasn't been himself lately, and he actually popped up on the injury report with a neck injury, like John McMullen mentioned. And in my opinion, when injuries involve the neck area, I tread lightly with those things. The first person I think of when I think about a neck injury is Peyton Manning, and we saw what that did to his career. In the latter stages, but this Giants offense is fueled by Saquon Barkley's ability to run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield. If Saquon Barkley isn't getting it done, the rest of this team isn't getting it done. Daniel Jones has not proven that he's a quarterback that's capable of elevating guys. He hasn't proven that he's capable of taking guys to another level and winning games. Now, granted, I want to give the Giants credit and the respect they deserve. They have some high-quality victories earlier on in the season. They beat the Baltimore Ravens. They beat the Packers. But I think that was more so great coaching rather than great play. So to answer your question directly, Jody, I don't think they have a player that's going to catch that ball at a crucial 3rd and long, or I don't think they have a player that's going to be able to catch that ball on a crucial 4th down conversion. They're thin. They're thin everywhere. They're thin at cornerback. They're missing Adoree Jackson. They're thin at wide receiver. They may be missing Richie James. He was limited in practice. They're just not talented enough. It's unfortunate, but this is who they are, and I think they've peaked. I think they've hit their ceiling, and I think now they're just at that point where they're just trying to make their way into the playoffs as unscathed as they possibly can. But I just think this Eagles team is just too much for them. They're not going to be able to keep up with them blow for blow. This Eagles team has proven that they're capable of putting up 30+ points in regularity.
Know that Barkley showed up on the injured list yesterday as limited with a neck. That's key to me, limited. If it was something severe with his neck,
yeah,
he's not even limited. He's out. So the fact that he was limited tells me he's going to play on Sunday. Now he takes a shot there and anything can happen, but I don't think the Eagles are going to get lucky enough that he's going to miss the game on Sunday. He's going to be in there. But just look at his last. I'll give you the quick rundown of Barkley's games this year. Went for 164 opening week against Tennessee. Basically won the game single-handedly for them. 71 the next week against Carolina. 81 against Dallas. 146 against the Bears. Came back with 70 against Green Bay. 83 against Baltimore. 110 against Jacksonville. 53 against Seattle. 152 against Houston. Yeah, Houston stinks, but 152 is 152. Last 3 weeks, 22 yards on 15 carries against Detroit, 39 yards on 11 carries against Dallas, and last week, okay, a little bit better, but not great, 63 yards on 18 carries in an overtime game, which lent itself to more carries. He hasn't had a bust-out game in a month, Tone. Why would you think it would happen this week against a very good Eagle defense?
I don't think it will, and it's no mistake or it's no coincidence that the game against the Houston Texans was the game where he had the most touches, 35 touches at the running back position, his most touches of the season, and all of a sudden he's just plummeting. I don't think that's a mistake. I don't think that's a coincidence. He is, like I said, he is their offense. And because they're so limited talent-wise, when you rely on a guy that much, especially at the running back position, and especially a guy that's had an injury history the way he's had it, how can you put all your eggs in that basket? How can you expect a running back with a plethora of injuries in his past to lead you and carry a team all the way to the finish line? It's a poor model, but I got to give Brian Daboll credit for maximizing the roster as is. At the end of the day, this team is playing well above their means. And, Saquon Barkley, he's having a great year, a great comeback season, from previous seasons, dealing with nagging injuries. It's just not a sustainable model, and I don't think anything changes this Sunday. Think about this Philadelphia Eagles run defense who's starting to actually find their way. We talked about this, many weeks ago, how the Philadelphia Eagles are actually going to have to go up against maybe the toughest stretch of their season because of the fact that because of their weakness in the running game and because they're going up against this gauntlet of talented running backs. It's ironic because their one loss of the season came against the weakest running back core in this stretch. They lost to Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, but they managed to limit Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon to a degree. A.J. Dillon was kind of killing those guys, but they managed to limit those guys for the most part. They managed to shut down Derrick Henry. So it's just fascinating how this Eagles team is starting to figure out their run defense. And on top of that, they're figuring out special teams as well, something that we thought was never going to get figured out. So this Philadelphia Eagles team is starting to get better and better as the season goes. And I just don't think the New York Giants have the capabilities to keep up with something like that. I don't think Saquon Barkley has it in him to be able to deal with all that beef on the Eagles defensive line.
Agreed. And yeah, that Washington game is the only loss that the Eagles have had. And they got beat between the tackles in that game as far as the run defense goes. Saquon can go between the tackles, but still, the thing you want to keep Saquon from doing is getting to the edge because he's got big playability if he gets one-on-one with a defensive back on the outside. I think that they will throw everything that they have at stopping Saquon Barkley. That's my one knock on Jonathan Gannon. Overall, I think Gannon is a well above average defensive coordinator, but he can be a little bit stubborn. It'd be interesting to see. They have not faced an individual guy this year like Saquon Barkley, where the rest of the offense was something you could underemphasize. That you could say, all right, well, we'll let him take a chance. Gannon's overall philosophy is don't give up the big play. Don't get gashed. Don't worry about giving up 3 yards a carry. Just make sure that nobody gets by. Do you have any fear that the Giants are going to get somebody behind this Eagle defense? I don't know that they need to play as many secondary players as they do. I would make sure that if you keep Saquon Barkley under wraps, you're going to be able to hold the Giants to 10 points. That was my prediction. I'll stick with the 10 points. I think he shows some flexibility this week. Coach Gannon, how about you?
I think he deploys the exact same game plan that he did against the Tennessee Titans. It may not have seemed it, but if you pay attention, he was stacking the box a bit throughout that game, forcing Derrick Henry to run up against at least a 7-man box. And, I think at this point in the season, Jonathan Gannon understands the fact that, look, I have a lot of talented guys up there, and I have to get out of my comfort zone. I think that was the most amount of guys I've seen in the box at the rate I've seen it all year. I'll be honest. I was nervous last week about Derrick Henry. I was extremely nervous. Like that was poised to be everything, as far as a get right game for him, because he was struggling. He was struggling as well, and that could have been a get right game for him because the Eagles' run defense has been suspect all season, and they're still considered to be middle of the pack or even beyond that in terms of run defense. They're starting to get it together. But to your point about the skill position guys at the wide receiver position trying to take the top off the Philadelphia Eagles, it's just not going to happen. They just don't have it, Jody. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, and I think about the fact that they're missing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, they're missing him, right? But you think about a guy in Reed Blankenship who's been playing well above what we expected. You think about a guy like Marcus Epps, who at times can be a liability in coverage, but plays very physical and is, for the most part, steady. They're getting Avonte Maddox back for the most part. Honestly, and I'm curious to see what you may think about this as well. Avonte Maddox coming back. He's scheduled to come back this week, but do you feel the need to rush Avonte Maddox back in this game in particular? I'm not of the mindset where I feel like I need to rush Avonte Maddox to deal with the New York Giants wide receiver core. I don't think it's that pressing.
Well, it all comes down to your definition of the word rush. When Avonte Maddox was 100% not dealing with the hamstring issue that he had, he was playing mid-80s percentage of the snaps. They do take their cover corner. When the other team goes to 2 tight end, they will from time to time take their slot corner off the field. 75%, if he usually plays 85% of the snaps. I'm not just throwing him in there to let him get some run, to let him stretch it out. No, he's your starter. He's going to play most of the snaps. Do you get him off a little bit more often and get the guy who did a good job for you just got in there for a handful of snaps? I would do that. If you're asking me what I think will happen, no, Avonte Maddox is going to play every snap that he's ever played, because that's the way the Eagles have done it. When a guy's good enough to play, they put him in there. They don't take a replacement and go, well, he did the job, so why don't we throw him some snaps? No, they don't do that. They believe in their setup and the way they go about allocating number of snaps. So my guess would be that he'll play full blast if he's capable of going at all. If he's going to start, I think he plays his usual number of reps. I would lean toward what you're suggesting. Maybe you bring him along a little bit slower. Maybe you give Josiah Scott a little bit of run because he kind of earned it with the way that he played. But the Eagles don't usually do it that way. So I would expect that to be the case again on Sunday. All right, he's Tone DeShields. Jody McDonald here with you. Tone's it for Johnny Mac. When we come back, we're going to get to hear from our buddy Jeff Mosher from InsideTheEagles.com, Inside the Eagles podcast, one of the best Eagles insiders. That would be Jeff Mosher. He joins us next here on Birds 365.